Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to continue with meeting between the President of Ukraine Zelensky and the Chancellor of Germany Friedrich Merz. 5 billion euros from Germany for Ukraine will be allocated for financing the production of long-range weapons in Ukraine. The Ukraine armed forces will receive the first systems in a few weeks. Supply of additional ammunition packages for various weapon systems, in particular for air defense, provision of ground weapons and small arms. The Russians made their own statement regarding the situation and regarding supplying and supporting Ukraine with long-range missiles. Russia will respond harshly, asymmetrically, and in a way Germany will feel it if Berlin proceeds with supplying Taurus missiles to the Kiev region, said Andrei Kartopalov, head of the State Duma Defense Committee. So the Russians are trying to say that Russia is prepared to bring down German-supplied Taurus missiles and strike the locations from which they are launched or delivered. So delivered is the key word in this statement. Furthermore, during the previous 12 hours, we got several interesting statements from Russia. Russia ready to present Ukraine with memorandum during second round of talks in Istanbul. The Russian delegation headed by Medinsky is ready to present Ukraine with a memorandum on overcoming the Ukrainian crisis in Istanbul, said Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. It is proposed to do this in person at the same place on June 2nd. Moscow has already voiced such a proposal to Kiev, but the Ukrainian side has not yet confirmed the meeting. So Ukraine has not confirmed the meeting because, according to information we have, during the upcoming weekend, the Ukrainians are planning to launch full-scale probably missile strike in the direction of the city of Moscow, and most likely the Ukrainians are going to use these, let's say, recently produced long-range missiles with the help of Germany. So something like this might happen in the very near future. So that is why the Ukrainians understand that if they do this missile strike, then most likely the Russians will quit the negotiation process, probably for the next 2-3 weeks, and they will use this time for another wave of a full-scale offensive operation along the entire line of combat contact. As for this full-scale offensive operation, we got another very interesting statement from Germany. Zelensky cuts Germany visit short as Russian forces advance in Sumy region. That was stated by Der Spiegel. Zelensky abruptly ended his trip to Germany and returned to Ukraine due to Russia's offensive in the Sumy region. According to Der Spiegel, he was scheduled to attend an awards ceremony for Ursula von der Leyen, but those plans were scrapped at the last minute. So now let's discuss this Russian offensive operation in Sumy region, and first let's talk about the northern directions. According to information we have, during the previous 12 hours, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly between the villages of Konstantinovka and the village of Volodymyrovka. The Russians took under control additional tree lines and fortifications in this area. Furthermore, according to several sources, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the village by the name of Vodolahi. All these updates were provided by neutral mappers. For example, this is the situation by the end of the 28th of May of 2025, and this is the situation by the morning of the 29th of May. The Russians are saying that currently Ukrainians suffer huge losses on the territory of the village of Kondrashovka, so which means that most likely the Russians have already launched another wave of offensive operation with the purpose to establish complete control over this small village. We believe that during the upcoming hours we are going to receive additional updates exactly from this area. Furthermore, pro-Russian resources reported that the Russians managed to improve their positions in the northern part of the village of Yunakiivka. Few more streets and buildings were taken by the Russians as a result of offensive operation. We are waiting for additional geolocations and additional changes on the map according to different sources. So we see that the situation remains very difficult for the Ukrainians and that the Russians continue advancing. Currently, according to information we have and according to the situation on the ground, the distance between the edge Russian positions in Sumy region and the city of Sumy itself is less than 30 kilometers, approximately 23 kilometers or so. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Konstantinovka direction where the Russians continue their offensive operation. And today, after a very long operational pause, we continue receiving updates from the city of Chasiv Yar. According to several mappers, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly and to establish complete control over the central part of the city. So the battle for the citadel has ended, and now the Russians continue advancing further in the southwestern direction with the purpose to take under control the micro-district of Shevchenka. Several pro-Russian resources reported that the Russians answered another micro-district by the name of Tsech number 2. So this approximately the roads of attack that the Russians are using right now. If this information is correct, most likely during the next probably several hours, several days, the Russians will be able to secure everything to the east of this red line. So we see that the battle for the city of Chasiv Yar answers the final stage. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Kliban-Byksky pocket. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians improved their positions in the village of Zarya. According to several mappers currently, and by the morning of the 29th of May of 2025, the Russians established control for over more than 80% of the settlement. The Ukrainians, according to different sources and different mappers, control just a few micro-districts of the small village. The Ukrainians control these farms that are located in the northeastern part of the village of Zarya, and the Ukrainians control the most northeastern part of the village itself. So there are, as you can see, high-rise building area, several buildings that allow the Ukrainians to hold their positions, and most likely the Ukrainians will be able to do this for another 1 or 2 days, but anyway, sooner or later the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back from this territory. Furthermore, we expect that the Russians can establish complete control over this territory within the next, let's say, day, and most likely the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will give us another report about this area in a very, let's say, near time. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation along the N32 road. According to information we have, the Russians continue their offensive operation in the northern direction, and as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to secure the village of Popov Yar completely. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the southern part of the village of Poltavka. During the previous night and during the previous day, the Russians improved their positions significantly. This is the situation on the map by the end of the 28th of May, and this is the situation on the map by the beginning of the 29th of May. As you can see, the Russians managed to reach these anti-tank ditches and to establish control over them. The Russians are trying to consolidate their troops along these anti-tank ditches, and as soon as they are able to get a critical mass, most likely the Russians will continue advancing further in the northern direction. The battle for Rusin Yar and control over this territory is going to be a turning point in the battle for the city of Konstantinovka and for the main supply lines. As for the main supply lines, the Russians continue publishing videos of how their FPV drones attack Ukrainian positions in this area. During the previous 24 hours, we got additional video with lots of episodes where we can see how Russians were attacking and destroying Ukrainian vehicles and equipment along the main supply lines. Several strikes took place in the vicinity of Dobropilye. Several FPV drone attacks took place in the vicinity of Novotoretsk. These two attacks are very important because Novotoretsk is something like a base for Ukrainian defense in the villages of Koptiva and Shevchenka-Pirsha. So this is, the Ukrainians have just one road of supply and support, how they can support their soldiers in the area of Shevchenka-Pirsha, and we're talking about this line. And as you can see, according to this configuration, the Russians established complete control with this territory, which means that currently Ukrainians who are currently located in Shevchenka-Pirsha have no supply and support from the mainland. So due to this situation, we expect that during the next several days or several hours, probably the Russians will be able to improve their positions and to take these territories also under complete control. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians finished the battle for the village by the name of Mirne. But when talking about this situation, several reports and the same reports we have been receiving during the previous several days, and we continue receiving them all right now, as you can see as well. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the South Donetsk direction where the Russians continue their offensive operation. According to information we have, the Russians during the previous 24 hours managed to improve their positions significantly along the river of Volcha and in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Odradne. The Russians reported that they managed to take under control several dams along the river of Volcha. So most likely the Russians secured this dam and the Russians secured this dam. Now the Ukrainians have no possibilities, or at least the Ukrainians have less possibilities to counterattack Russian positions in the area of the village by the name of Bogatyr. During the previous night, the Ukrainians published another video where we can see how the units of the 33rd Mechanized Brigade were counterattacking Russians in the area of the village of Bogatyr. The Ukrainians used this video and used this information as a proof that the village of Bogatyr still remains under complete Ukrainian control. But the sources forgot to report that the video we've just seen were made probably 8 or 10 days ago. Now let's talk about the Gulay Polye direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians continue improving their positions around the village of Zelene Polye. So this is the situation, for example, by the end of the 28th of May of 2025, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 29th of May. The Russians managed to improve their positions in the village and around the settlement. Furthermore, according to information we have, during the previous night, the Russians carry out massive missile strike in the southern part of Ukraine. Today, the Russian sources published this video, and in this video we can see how the Russians, as a result of reconnaissance operation, managed to discover position of the armored forces of Ukraine on the territory of the city of Achakov. The Russians are saying that they managed to discover the headquarters of the group of forces south, and as a result of Iskander strike and Gerain strike, these headquarters and ammo depots around were completely destroyed. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you, we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.